Ben Vallis here with First of the Floor. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. The Celtics suffered, in the words of Drew Holiday, a good old-fashioned ass-whooping at the hands of the Los Angeles Clippers last night, losing 115-96, and it was not that close. The C's were down by 36 at one point, guys. It's not all bad, though. The Celtics blew the pants off the Miami Heat just a couple of days ago, and we'll get to that too. Jake Eisenberg and Wayne Spooney are both here. Spooney, how's it going, man?
I'm doing all right, man. You know, it's the end of the weekend here on the East Coast. Back to the grind, back to daycare, thankfully. So, yeah, there's light. But, yeah, not a great game. Did not really enjoy watching that, although the garbage time stuff was kind of fun. But when your highlight is the garbage time when you're down 30, not great.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake, have we got salty Jake today?
No, I think I'm going to be a really helpful light in the darkness.
Okay.
I don't know how there is actually darkness, but there definitely is. It's like, because we're losing so little, the reaction to each loss is more than ever before. It's what it feels like to me. Like, it definitely happened last year. Losing is always bad. People always are upset when they lose. You should be. That's what sports is all about. But this year in particular, oh my Lord, dude. Everybody's just freaking out after every single loss. But no, I'm not. I mean, maybe I'm salty towards the overreactions. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, and we are going to get to that. We are going to get to like a message to the Doomers, because I feel the opposite, guys. Like we've won so many games and lost so few that when we do lose, it's like, oh, whatever. Like loss number 11, who gives a shit? Like I barely know this feeling, and there's been such a large sample size of goodness from this team that it's going to take more than that to rock the boat for the sane fan out there, if you will. So just very quickly before we get to everything else, a bit of housekeeping. And this will take a minute, so skip forward, go to the bathroom if you don't care about promotion stuff. Guys, we're so close to 3,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're already subbed, hit that like button or do both. It helps us put this show in front of more eyeballs. Shout out to all the audio podcast listeners as well. Please subscribe there as well if you enjoy the show. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Subscriber numbers are really helpful when it comes to reaching out to potential guests, so please don't hesitate there. Also, did you know that you can watch Celtics games with us live? Sign up on the Celtics blog's Playback Room, playback.tv/Celtics blog. The link to everything that I've already mentioned and about to mention are all in the description below. Playback is an awesome platform. It allows us all to watch the game together on a shared digital screen, similar to what we're doing right now, but instead of us purely on the screen, it's the game and our faces as well. It's a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Wayne Spooney, he's put a new piece up on Celtics blog, a trade primer. The trade deadline's only 10 days away, guys. So Spooney stuff, it's always great. Check it out. Is there a little teaser? I haven't teed you up before we started recording, Spooney, but can you give us a little teaser at all about your trade primer?
Yeah, so this really isn't written for like sickos like you two, right? Like who basically know the trade rules, who have looked through like the who makes less than $8 million on every team and looked at all the targets. If the trade rules are confusing to you, if you don't, if you see people throwing out a bunch of names, it really just lays out, here's what the trade rules are. Here's what our asset chest is right now. 2 firsts, 8 seconds, tradable contracts. And then here's some types of names that we can go after. Dudes who make X amount of money, who aren't good, who are on the right type of team, right? Because Milwaukee ain't trading people to us, right? So it's like your Atlanta's, your San Antonio's, your Detroit. So it's just like a 3 steps like on the way to help you better understand how the trade deadline might go. And the more I look at it, the more I think we're going to make a trade. It will probably be a small one, but I think we're going to trade for somebody.
Yeah,
definitely going to do something.
Yeah, well, check that out if you need a refresher. Like I probably do. Like I was saying, guys, I'm so wrapped up in the amazing Celtics that I've kind of shied away from the details coming up to the trade deadline. So I'll have to check that out for a bit of a refresher. And finally, before we get to the Clippers game and the Heat game, we're launching the First of the Floor Discord server. In fact, it's already live. We've got a couple of people who have jumped in there. Again, the link is in the description. You can scan this barcode here, which will take you to our Linktree page where you can subscribe to everything we've mentioned so far, including the Discord channel. Why are we launching a Discord channel? Well, to be honest, it seems like a thing that podcasts do, and we are a podcast.
That's what we're doing.
But we've had enough people ask us to do it. So we've gone ahead and done the thing, and it's a great way for you to interact with us and for us to interact with you, which we always say is our favorite part of doing this show. You can also massively contribute to the show. So our podcast run sheet is there, so you can see it as we're building out the framework for each episode. You can annotate over that run sheet. You can comment and add suggestions of what you want to see included or omitted from the show. Maybe you didn't want us to talk about the Clippers game today, but no one's been in there, so we're going to do it. You can suggest a new podcast segment. You can suggest clips for our underrated plays series, but for the most part, it's just a place to hang out and talk some Celtics
Just
and sort of
Celtics
a safe space.
vibes,
Good vibes.
Just constant therapy if you need it. Maybe we can argue about, whether or not Sam Hauser can be upgraded or not. Just normal stuff that people do.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see more people file in there. Aussie Phil, who just gave us a thumbs up in the chat, he's in there already. Good to see. All right, guys, I'm sorry for the rant. On to the Clippers game, and fuck, Spoonie, what happened? Why did we lose this game so badly?
I'm glad you threw to me first, because I think there's like a very obvious answer. But then if you look at the numbers, maybe not. So like I went through and I combed through. These are 11 wide open threes. We complete, like most of these are not even close. That we completely bricked. We shot 18% on 11 open threes, and we shot 22% on 23 wide open threes. And I think a lot of those makes were like at the end of garbage time with where the game was like totally over. So we were just absolutely terrible. But the Clippers also shot 22% on wide open threes. So I think the big thing is, yes, the shots weren't going down. Yes, we didn't have Porzingis, but the only thing that I'm kind of concerned about is they let the lack of shot making and maybe the lack of a whistle affect their energy, other than Jason Tatum, who I thought was awesome basically every minute he was on the court. And really this game started to get away from us even in the first quarter when Tatum came out. Luke missing that tip was just so bad.
It wasn't just the threes,
One of
dude.
many.
It was.
Bunnies,
Go ahead,
so
Jake.
many. Well, we missed so many bunnies too. It was like the orange ball. It was orange ball didn't go in game from three, from mid range, from the rim, nothing. And then absolutely, Jason Tatum was like, I loved his approach. He was attacking. He did, Paul George did a good job drawing a charge on him, but he just could not get a call to save his life. He attacked the rim relentlessly, got one foul call, but he was like one of the only ones where it didn't impact his overall effort. And everybody else, I thought he was actually quite mad in a way that I haven't seen him act very often at all. And it felt like it was directed at everybody. The rest of the players, there was a comment that he made in the post game that some people ran with as like a Joe criticism, which I think maybe you could spin it that way. I just thought he was upset with the people on the court. I thought the decision-making from a lot of guys wasn't good. Just the inability to finish at the rim. It definitely impacted the defensive intensity, which, I'll be honest, has been maybe not happened at all this year. Like, has been absolutely a staple of, and it's something that happens to a lot of NBA teams. Dude, they could not buy a single bucket. It's just like, how mentally strong does a team have to be before like enough misses finally breaks you? And it felt like it finally kind of broke them today. They couldn't exactly get anything. 3-point, mid-range, 2-point, at the rim, easy putbacks. Every little bounce was going the wrong way, and they just like, it just impacted them on the other end. And I do think that part of it was just they kind of got up for that Miami game, but and they weren't able to kind of carry it into this game. But orange ball didn't go in.
The copium is like classic first game back from a road trip, even though it was sort of a truncated road trip, only the 3 games there. But they just, like we said, blew the pants off Miami, which we will get to. But then you come home, you've got 7 games here at home, you're settling in, and you just don't come out with that pop. Not to discredit the Clippers defense, because it was incredible and absolutely really like muddled up the Celtics and what they like to do offensively. It's probably the one game in a while where we needed our curveball in Kristaps Porzingis just to give us the adequate spacing. Add to that, Al Horford apparently dislocates his finger like a couple of plays into the game, and he had maybe some of the most wide open 3-point attempts in this game, and it was clearly bothering him. Those shots don't go down. You guys have already said it. The Clippers get out in transition. Things start to bother the Celtics on both ends, and the night's over basically a quarter and a half into the game. And that's essentially what Joe Mazzulla said. I don't have any quotes from Mazzulla's post-game, but he basically echoed those sentiments that the ball wasn't going in. The Clippers started to get out in transition. Our defense started becoming impacted by that.
Defense was so bad.
I
I've
know.
never seen that before from this team.
No,
they look like the
Yeah.
Bucks or the Sixers. So that's why, like, I'm not worried because we have a monster sample size of what we've seen from this team, and that's not what we saw yesterday. And I don't know if you want to talk about them more broadly, whether or not we're concerned or not yet, but like this game in particular, like you flush it. Like we played this team on the other road trip. We blew them out. There was no Kawhi, but there was no Porzingis. I understand switching defenses can give us trouble. Obviously, they gave us trouble yesterday, but part of it was like you just have to make shots in the NBA, and they weren't able to do that. But yeah, like I can see people talking about we wish we had Tice. Tice was swatting everything. Our old friend. This is why he's not on the Celtics, because he's getting legit like backup center playing time on the Clippers, which he'd be playing the Luke Cornett role on this team. So that's why he's gone to the Clippers. Maybe we can bring him back one day. But you flush this one and you get ready for New Orleans.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting, like the way I thought the Clippers, their switching is trouble without Porzingis, but we can still beat a switching defense without him. But they really overload like the strong side. Like once you get it to the right or the left side, they basically like flush like 4 defenders on that side. That sometimes Tatum would catch the ball on the wing, and they're basically 4-man zoning up against him, and he's making the right play, and that's like just swing, and it's an open corner 3. And we got a million of them, and I'm pretty sure we made literally 1 corner 3 that entire game, So it's like you're punishing the defense the appropriate way, and you just can't capitalize, man. It was frustrating to watch. I imagine it was extremely frustrating to play in, too.
Yeah, I saw some Clippers journalists, like they clipped the game, not to say that, I don't know, I was going to make a Clippers pun there, but I couldn't quite tie it together in my mind.
You kind of did.
Basically did, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, they clipped some possessions from the game from the Clippers' perspective, and it was like, oh man, look at the Clippers' defense. Isn't it amazing? And like 4 out of the 8 clips that they showed resulted in wide open looks from beyond the arc for the Celtics, and they just didn't make them. So yes, credit the Clippers' defense, but half of those possessions resulted in wide open shots that the Celtics normally hit at a high rate, one of the highest in the league. You can't fault the process for the Celtics until they just clearly got bogged down in the results. And that was it, like we've already said. And Jake, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's funny because remember with the Jazz game, like the Jazz were beating everybody. Sixers, Bucks, you name it, they were winning. And then they came into Boston and we just blew them off the court. And like, you go back and watch, they missed so many wide open looks. And the Celtics just like were up 40 all of a sudden. It's like, if some of those looks go down in the midst of the Utah Jazz playing that well, I think that's a completely different game. Mm-hmm. And that's just sometimes what happens in a basketball game. In the midst of these crazy schedules, it's just like 1.5 quarters gets away from you, and that's it. And there's not really any way for you to bring it back. You're like, well, we got a back-to-back coming up in 2 days. Let's get out of here. Yeah. Non-conference opponent as well. It's like we just beat our rivals last game. This like the only way we're going to see the Clippers again is if we see them in June. So it's like, we already smoked them once this year too.
And not just the threes not going in when you miss layups, right?
Oh,
like
God.
You're down a guy in transition, and so all of a sudden they're just running back down your throat. And we missed a ton of layups, and they took advantage. I mean, credit to the Clippers, though. They played really, really well. Like Terrence Mann was just flying out of nowhere for offensive rebounds. So they played really well. That they deserved to win that game, but that's certainly not a 30-point blowout if we shoot. I think even just like a little bit better in the first half. We stay a little more connected.
This comment here about Celtics are guaranteeing to choke this year, 4th year in a row. They'll haul up 75 threes, make 3 of them, and the coach will say they were good looks with no plan B. Go back and watch all the misses. Not even the threes. Like, they missed a shitload of non-threes. Like, this was a purely, here we go. Thank you, Dan Greenberg. Like, you have to put the orange ball in the basket one way or another. And they were not able to do it from any spot on the court consistently. And then what happens? If you're not making threes, teams don't start to close out harder. That's just, and then it's impossible to attack the paint because that's where they're loading up from. It's like, you want to play inside out, that's fine. But if you're not knocking down any shots, then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The defense is going to be loaded up in the middle. You're not going to be able to attack. They're going to get out and run the other way because you're trying to force it at the rim when they're loaded up.
Not getting calls.
Oh my God, the calls. Jason Tatum, dude.
Oh my God.
He was fantastic. Man, because like he had some really incredible plays. Like he took Paul George to the rim. He should have gotten an M1 on Kawhi. pretty anticlimactic way for him to reach 11,000 points, but he had some really nice moments as well.
Yeah, early he was taking both Kawhi and PG to the rim with success. And we're like, here we go. Tatum's not going to let us lose this game. Like, he's the dominant wing of all the dominant wings in this game. But unfortunately, Orange Ball did not go into the hole, which is the prevailing sentiment coming away from this one. Just for audio listeners, the Greeny tweet that we were referring to earlier basically says both the Celtics and Clippers were both really bad on open/wide open three-point attempts last night. Boston, 7 of 33. LA Clippers, 9 of 35. The true difference in the game was in open/wide open 2-point field goal production. Boston, 3 of 8. LA Clippers, 15 of 22. 3 of 8 from 2. What? That doesn't seem real.
On wide open.
On wide open twos. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's even worse.
That's why it's
even
confusing.
worse.
That's exactly.
Yes.
And part of why the volume for the Clippers wide open 2-point field goals was so high was the transition opportunities. They were just like literally just shooting fast break layups. And the Celtics were not, because the Clippers were putting the ball in the basket, which makes it really hard to get transition opportunities. And it just snowballed.
I have a bunch of cleaning the glass stats here, which factors out garbage time, which is like half the game. I'm not going to read them off because it's just a worse version of everything we've already discussed.
Whatever.
Let's just move on.
So the long-term concerns. I want to get into this because
okay, let's do it.
The Celtics. Okay, can we at least all agree that the Celtics are going to lose some games? They're not going to go 70. No. All right.
It's heartbreaking every time.
Damn it.
It's never not devastating.
Yeah. Look, it hurts. Hurts me just like it hurts you guys. You know, I'm Butterman. But they are going to lose some games. The record is 73-9. They lost some games too. The KD Warriors won 67 games. We're like on pace to win 62 games. So we're going to lose some games. So what way is acceptable? Because everybody gets really upset when we lose close games because that's our Achilles heel apparently, and that's our weakness. But, you know, we're so good that this is the third double-digit loss of the season. So it's like, okay, we don't really get blown out because we're so good. But then we get blown out yesterday and everybody freaks out. So we can't decide whether or not we want a blowout or a close game. So would you rather us... So, and now the popular thing going around Twitter has been the Celtics recently have lost to the Thunder, the Clippers, and the Bucks. So, like, the Celtics have not been incredible against the best teams. So, okay, that's okay. But so would you rather us win those games and lose like the OKC Thunder did to the Pistons by 20 points today? Would that make people feel better? I have a feeling that would not make people feel better if we were losing games to the Pistons as opposed to losing games to the Clippers and the Nuggets. And so what way is acceptable? So I've got a few tweets here, and I shout out Celtics Twitter for really going to war these last couple of days. Corey B, one of these
Legend.
he just anytime slander pops up, he goes off for like 48 straight hours. So worst losses of the season for each top 5 Eastern Conference, Western Conference team. Celtics have lost to the Bucks by 33. The Bucks have lost to the Cavs by 40. The Sixers have lost to the Knicks by 36. The Knicks have lost to the Bucks by 24. The Cavs have lost to the Heat by 33. The Nuggets beat the Thunder by 33. T-Wolves lose to the Sun by 28. Clippers lose to the Celtics by 37. You get the point. All of the contenders have monster blowouts by really good teams. Okay, let's look at best records against teams below 500. Celtics are 15-2 against teams below 500. Very good. Best record against teams above 500. Boston Celtics, number 1 in the league, 20-9. And last one, Daniel Greenberg, again, doing the Lord's work. Celtics offense versus top 10 defenses, first in the NBA by like a lot. So they're really good. They have to lose some way. Every team loses to the best teams. I'm pretty sure the losses you want the only way to beat us is if the best teams beat us. That's the mark of a really good team. Is the only way to beat them is like the best teams, typically in close games. They're going to lose some games, and we've got to figure out which one you're going to be able to accept.
That was fucking beautiful, Jake.
Yes.
Preach, dude. Preach.
That's the clip. That's the clip. From
Let's
this
go.
And you know what I want to know? How many of those losses above 500 teams are without Porzingis? Like, I've seen going around like, well, the Celtics aren't going to win the title without Kristaps Porzingis. No shit. Name another team that's not going to win the title. Like, that's going to win the title with one of their top 3 out. Like, maybe the Lakers. They're not going to win the title anyway. But that's
yeah,
just
because they don't
their
have a
third
3.
player sucks. Yeah, exactly. So, like, yeah, of course we need our third, maybe second best player, maybe second most important player. And then you look like the difference between the Miami game and the Clippers game, the way that we can attack the defense that the Clippers were playing, which Miami also plays with Porzingis, is just night and day. He completely transforms the offense. And we've been the best team against the best teams. Like, I just don't know what people want from them other than, literally to win every game. Obviously, that we're probably going to lose games in the playoffs too. I hope people are prepared for that. Yeah.
Oh no, we're not going to sweep every round. I'll add to that. Sometimes you just lose to the fucking Charlotte Hornets as well. Sometimes that just happens. The 72-10 Bulls, not to draw too much of a comparison there, they lost to the debut Toronto Raptors, right? Like in their first season ever, I believe. The Demont Stoudemire Toronto Raptors, they lost to that team. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes you just shit the bed. As in life, as in basketball, as in any time ever. It just happens. And maybe this was a combination last night of a bed shitting and coming up against a really good, talented team with a really rare, limited tool set in that they have the personnel on the wings to really counteract the Jays. What would be good to counteract that? You said it. Kristaps Porzingis. He wasn't around for this one. I'm sorry about that. We lost the game. Also, first game home from a long road trip, a longish road trip. I already said it was a short road trip, so I'm not going to lie. That's a documented phenomenon, right? That you do often lose those games, more so than not. So I will also add that the Celtics they're tied for the first best road record, along with the OKC Thunder in all of the league. They win on the road. Obviously, they got the first home record as well. There's plenty good going on for the Celtics. And to get online and to whinge and moan about, the flaws of this team and how they're doomed to choke again, first of all, I would say just enjoy it. Like, this is the best team since 2008, the beginning of 2009, right? Enjoy that. It's a thing that not everyone gets, like, in a lifetime. If you look at other fan bases, we've got it right now. They're so good. They've lost fuck all games. It's super enjoyable. They're going to shit the bed every now and then. It's fine. And then, look at the personnel that we've got going into the playoffs. Look at the job we've done, touch wood, preserving them thus far and managing load and minutes. We've done a really good job there. This team has its sights set on the playoffs. So who gives a fuck if they lose a couple of regular season games? It's crazy. I will add to that though, guys. Is there an issue with people like Greeny, who is a dear friend of the show and we love very much, like platforming these doomers on Twitter? Because really they only get mass exposure when they get quote tweeted and then the argument gets thrown back in their face. Is there an issue there?
I do want to say, like, it's good to be upset. Like, everyone can be sad that your team lost and like, dang, shoot, not again, we lost. Like, that sucks. I would have loved to have beaten the Clippers. Like, it would honestly have been nice to like step up and beat one of the best teams in the Western Conference. Absolutely. Like, we're not trying to, police the way that everybody's feeling.
Good point.
But like, to go all the way off the deep end and be like, there's no chance this team can ever do anything. Like, well, then what? Then don't watch, dude. Then what's even the point? Like, if that's where we're gonna go, and it's never in the context of all these other teams. So, yeah, like, obviously be upset and be upset your team loses, but then get back on the horse. How do you want your Celtics to respond? You want them to be like, we're gonna choke again.
Great accent.
Let's not try and get better, because that's what they've been doing, has been responding to down moments. Like, they've only lost 2 games in a row once, I think, this season, and let's see them respond against a pretty good Pelicans team.
Yeah, and can I just say, like, KP, obviously important. I think he's specifically important against a team like the Clippers, because guess what? They're 10-3 without him this year. So they're still one of the best teams in the NBA, even without Porzingis. So, like, that's how talented they are. That's how good they are. And guess what? They're going to lose games. It happens. It sucks. Yeah, get sad, get upset, but it's not a referendum on their title odds when they lose a game in January. It's just not.
And I think maybe there's people being like, oh, these guys, bloody first of the floors, always so positive, optimistic, etc. Like, if things like continue to slide, and like we objectively think the team is like not going to reach their potential or whatever, but like I think we can comfortably say for like 10 days plus or so now, like they haven't been playing their best basketball relative to the rest of the season. Like, you know, the Raptors game was close, the Spurs game ended up as a blowout, but you know that was closer than it should have been. Where we want Walshy time, and that takes us a while to get there. The Jays didn't play great against the Nuggets. Like, they're not playing as well as they have throughout the most of the season. They're definitely on a bit of a down swing at the moment. Part of that's like Derek White's kind of come back down to earth. Like Jalen and Jason have particularly been fantastic lately. That Rockets game where Jalen and Jason looked like they went out till 5 a.m. But Porzingis saves the day. Oh, but then they bounce back against the Mavericks. Right now, they're not playing consistently at their peak right now, and that's fair. I'm totally comfortable to say that, but like, I absolutely subscribe to an 82-game regular season. There's going to be ebbs and flows. We're coming to the All-Star break. We've been playing badly, and what are we, like 7-3 in our last 10? Like, you just got to keep grinding these things out. 7-3 in our last 10. We have a 3-game lead on the 1 seed. Like, it's not going to be perfect, but keep grinding, keep grinding, keep grinding. We'll get there.
Before we get to our FanDuel ad read, just to flip the table here, the game against Miami was joyous, to say the least. How can that game go so far in that direction, Spoonie, compared to the Clippers game, which we've talked about going so far in the other direction?
Yeah, I think the lack of Porzingis, especially against similar defensive teams, and then like, dude, we shot like 55% from 3 against Miami, and so did Miami too.
Yeah, that was what was nuts, is that they kept it close because they were.
Yeah, but ultimately Miami just doesn't have the firepower. They didn't generate nearly as many threes. Like, a lot of their buckets when they were keeping it close were these like really difficult mid-range twos. The difference is that like Kawhi hit a bunch of those too, because he's Kawhi fucking Leonard, and that's like his shot, man. That's why he's won 2 Finals MVPs. That's why he, other than injuries, would probably be one of the greatest players of all time. And Bam and Jimmy are very good, but they're obviously not on that level. So I think that's a part of it. And then, you know, you just see some of the weaknesses show without KP on the offensive end. And, you know, again, like, it's the shooting. I hate to beat a dead horse, but sorry.
But, dude, but like, we giddy up. But like we got whatever we wanted against the Heat. And like, obviously there's going to be that shooting disparity, but man, these Eastern Conference matchups are so much more important. I've said it before. We're going to play, if we play any of these Western Conference teams in the playoffs, it's going to be one team. And if we make the finals, that means we would have figured some stuff out and played pretty damn well to make it to the finals. So I'm going to be feeling pretty good by the time we get there with my team built of like 25 to 30-year-olds. Like, the Clippers, congratulations on having a good 6-week stretch for the first time in the history of the Kawhi and Paul George era. Like, there's a long way to go, right? Like, part of why Tatum and Jalen are always there is because they're able to get themselves into a top 3 seed and play playoff series after playoff series. Kawhi made it through 2 playoff games last year. That's it. Once his minutes load went up. This Heat game, so much more important. I know the Heat were on a back-to-back against the Grizzlies, who, by the way, Heat have lost 6 in a row here. And, like, they make this Terry Rozier trade, and we're all terrified and scarred, as we should be. Any sane person should be scarred from what the Miami Heat have done to us. We've gone to some dark places, but man, Tatum and Jalen a year older, new version of Derek White. Porzingis though, and you saw it in this game, like, they can't handle him, dude. Like, he can shoot over every single person on that team. The whole secret to the Heat was like switching Bam onto the Jays. You switch Bam onto the Jays, all of a sudden Porzingis, their next best defender is Jimmy Butler, great defender, 6'6" versus 7'3". He just turned and shot right over him multiple times. Like, they're too small. A backcourt of Hero and Terry Rozier, then Haywood Highsmith at the 3, Jimmy at the 4. Like, Jimmy at the 4 last year is cool. That was before Jason Tatum added another 12 pounds of muscle. Like, KP, I thought as well, once he acclimatizes to Jimmy Butler's pump fakes, like, the Celtics are so disciplined now dealing with the Jimmy pump fakes that once you stay down on those, he basically has to hit all mid-ranges. Keeping him off the line is just, that's the only thing that matters. And KP will get that once you get to the playoffs. But dude, KP in that matchup, like I feel so much. I actually kind of want the Heat now. I think we got him.
Whoa. I don't know if I could ever take myself there, but I like the confidence. And the one thing I wanted to call out was just the recognition of the Heat's zone in this game. It felt like they were recognizing that zone formation like in transition on their way up the court, which is just such a far cry rather from last year. And then obviously the added personnel with dealing with that zone. But even when KP had gone out with his ankle sprain, there was some high-low with Al and Cornette to deal with the zone. We were seeing guys slash across the zone and get the ball at the nail in the perfect position, and then the perfect off-ball movement to counteract that defense. So it just feels like they're well-studied, they're well-versed in the Spoelstra Heat defenses, and they had a counter for everything they threw at them, which is just such a relief after years of struggling with it. Now, we're going to come back in a moment and do our Eastern Conference check-in, but first, a quick word from our sponsor.
The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. It's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit fanduel.com/Boston and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Now, guys, I had a look at FanDuel before we started recording to see if I could find anything on the Pels game tomorrow. Unfortunately, it's not up yet. I guess because some injury reports aren't solidified yet. But I would take, and this is speculative, obviously, as are all bets, the Celtics money line plus Jaylen Brown points over, whatever that's set at. Jaylen Brown had a terrible game, shooting-wise, and in other facets as well. He's not going to have back-to-back terrible games, I hazard a guess. And the Celtics are not going to lose back-to-back games as they haven't all year. So I'm confident in the Celtics winning this one. I'm confident in a bounce-back game from Jaylen Brown. Thoughts, Jake, Spoonie?
Yeah, love it. Love it. Something that's been working for me has been Tatum. If you were doing a same-game parlay, Tatum 2+ made threes. He just... like, he takes 8 a game. Like, anytime he goes under 8 attempts is, like, kind of an outlier. I went back and looked at, like, all of his three-point make games. There's, like, a few 0-1 games, but for the most part, he always at least makes 2. So, yeah, Celtics money line, Tatum to make 2+ threes. Maybe you do an alternate Jalen points. Like, I'm guessing the line's at, like, 24-ish. Get that down to, like, 19.5. Lock it up, dude. And I'm pretty sure...
Lock it up.
Could be wrong, but I think that they're doing, like, 3-leg... same game parlays, and if one leg fails, you get bonus bet back. I'm not a scientist, but I think that's good.
Not
that's
a ton of risk.
Process. It's good process because you get the bonus bet back on like only 3 legs. The odds like you get to like plus whatever, plus 100 or whatever. That's a good process. So what's been providing some value for me lately.
Interesting. Nice. Yeah, and I bet you Herb Jones will probably be on Tatum, and I think Ingram's playing. I probably should have checked before this podcast, and the Jays have historically diced up Ingram as most people do.
They're too small.
Yeah, he's just so slow on the perimeter. So I love that, and yeah, with Valanciunas, he's going to get open mid-range jump shots all game long.
Now, look, we're at the halfway point of the season-ish, and there's been a lot of shifting in the teams in the standings below us with a bunch of trades occurring prior to the trade deadline. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, the impetus for this segment, Eastern Conference check-in, is the Knicks are looking a little terrifying. Right, guys? 6-1 in their last 7. They've got the... where did I have it? In the last 2 weeks, I just had this up in front of me. Last 2 weeks, they've got the 8th best offense, the 2nd best defense, and the 2nd best point differential per cleaning the glass. OG Anunoby is killing it. Brunson is doing his thing as always, and it just looks like that team is really starting to gel personnel-wise under Tom Thibodeau. I'm not sure when we face them next, but have they emerged as sort of like the second scariest team aside from the Celtics in the East?
Ooh. Go on, Spoonie.
Recency bias obviously plays a factor here, but come on.
Yeah. Okay, so the Knicks are kind of like my second team for some reason. I love their announcing crew.
Yeah,
they have Yeah, they have Deuce McBride, WVU guy, who has now getting a bunch of minutes now that Quickly's out there and playing pretty damn well,
He was good yesterday against the Heat.
Yeah, he's been playing really well since IQ left. Yeah, I think they're like 13-3 or 12-3 since the OG trade. So they look really good. I also saw a tweet maybe 4, 5, 6 days ago that opponents are shooting like 29% on open threes against them since they got OG. So I think some of this is a little bit of shooting luck for their defense, but so that'll come up, but yeah, the schedule's been kind of soft, but they're a really good team. They're really interesting. The thing that doesn't scare me is I have said it since I've been on this podcast.
I know what you're going to say.
Julius Randle does not terrify me in the playoffs at all, man. He is a playoff, he's a guy whose game downgrades in the playoffs, like those crazy step back threes that he can just fire away in the regular season, just stop going down. He's really out of control at times. He's really bad at handling doubles and pressure. He's turnover prone like crazy, and they really rely. I mean, he is their number 2 option. He has a massive usage rate. They need him to win games, and I just don't believe in him in the playoffs. And we have great personnel to guard Brunson, but the Knicks are really good. They're up there, man. I think they're closer to Philly than they are. The Cavs been playing really well too. So there's some good teams in the East now,
dude. There's the playoffs are going to be tough. The 8 seed is the Magic. Unless we get lucky and someone like the Bulls or the Hawks wins the play-in and sneaks into the 8 seed, it's going to be a hard first round series relative to some years previous. That's just the reality. But we're a good enough team where I'm still not going to be too concerned about a Magic or a Pacers series. But the Knicks in particular, I was getting to a point where I was getting a bit scared about the Knicks too, but I hadn't actually really sat down to watch them amidst this stretch that much lately. So I sat down, locked into this Heat Knicks game yesterday, and Spoonie, that was my first takeaway, was the same. Julius Randle, dude, you just can't, and he did it last playoffs as well. He is a black hole, and he just does not have that self-awareness to realize that it's going badly. When he's bad, it can be so destructive. And yesterday, they were able to win the game by a lot, but yesterday in a game that they played well in, 6 for 14, 4 turnovers. When a defense is locked in, it's similar to Embiid in that when defenses really key in on him, his weaknesses are kind of really easy to exploit. The turnover stuff, he doesn't pass. He's just not a great passer. And so when he goes into I'm really pissed off mode, tries to back guys down, ball in a China shop, he's really kind of easy to upset. I feel like he's a guy that has terrible mistake recovery, an underrated skill, something that Jason Tatum does not have. He is incredible at mistake recovery. He has completely forgotten whether or not he made or missed the last shot or whatever. He's just locked in possession to possession, whereas Randall can really let things spiral from not only within a game but from game to game in the playoffs. As far as the Celtics matchup goes, I think it would be tough, and the Knicks have historically played the Celtics pretty tough. Ironically, the 2 guys that really cook us have been RJ Barrett and Quickly.
Yeah.
and they're gone. So Brunson, we obviously kind of match up pretty well with him just with our size in the guard and the wing positions. And then even OG hasn't been a guy that's really given us trouble when we've played the Raptors recently. So I think the Knicks could give some other teams some serious trouble. I think that the Knicks could easily beat any of the Bucks, Sixers, or basically those 2. I think that the second round with a Knicks team playing like this with this kind of defense could really give, maybe not the Sixers. I'm kind of at the point where I'm at the Sixers are at number 2, just because of the way that Embiid's playing. But I think the Bucks, just because of their defense, would potentially really struggle with the Knicks.
Great year to be the first seed going into the playoffs.
Yes.
Obviously a long way to go, but there's this real sense that these guys are going to beat the shit out of each other in those earlier rounds of the playoffs before one of them gets to us rather in the second or third round, which is very exciting. Other 2 teams, there's only 2 other Eastern Conference teams to be over 500 in the past 2 weeks. One of those is the Cavs. They've been 5-1. The other is Milwaukee. They've been 5-2. Of those 2 teams, I feel like we should talk about the Bucks, right? Who have undergone a pretty significant coaching change. Jake, what are your thoughts on Doc Rivers to the Bucks?
On one hand, man, we did everything we could to try and keep Adrian Griffin there. We walked in and we lost by 1 million points to the Bucks, and even that didn't save Adrian Griffin's job, because I think that was bad. It's very clear how much they hated him, because they are playing completely inspired relative to the way they were playing, especially on defense, before Adrian Griffin left. So that's kind of a bummer. But then they turn around and hire Doc Rivers. And it's like, if you want a real eloquent soliloquy on Doc Rivers and what he means for the Bucks, go and listen to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. It's like that meme, the two super strong guys doing a handshake, and it's like Celtics fans, Sixers fans,
Yes.
zero belief in Doc Rivers. Like, it's like, I was thinking about it. I think I would want, like, who would I be happier for or less upset if they were to actually make the finals between the Bucks and the Sixers? Put my mind in a freaking pretzel. I can't lie. Couldn't really figure that one out. But Doc is just not a good playoff coach, and they did such a good job of outlining, like, Doc's a freaking wizard, dude. Like, oh, Doc's gonna raise the floor of this team. He always has good relationships with star players. All of his rosters always make it, good regular seasons, and they at least get to the second round or conference finals, and they do blow some leads in the playoffs, but they raise the floor. Sure. Or does he selectively only choose rosters that are incredible? So it's like anyone could be taking these rosters to 50 plus wins and to the second seeds and to the second round of the playoffs, because it's like he only has rosters with top 75 players. The Celtics roster in 08, like, the fact that really he only got one title is kind of like not even meeting expectations with that team, right? They should have gotten probably one more. Obviously, the KG injury. The Lob City Clippers is one of the most disappointing eras of basketball ever. The Kawhi and Paul George era, massive disappointment, obviously injury-wise. Sixers fans hated Doc Rivers, and he met the exact same standards as Brett Brown did. So it's like, okay, now he takes a little break, and all of a sudden he's got Damon Giannis. It's like, man, this guy, he knows what he's doing.
Well, what doesn't make sense to me is, like, their floor is obviously really high. That's not the problem. Like, they're 30-13 or something like that. Like, they were winning games. The floor is very high. Their problem is they need somebody who's a tactician at the highest level, because they have such a bizarre roster where they start essentially two bigs and then no good wing defenders. So, like, I would have gone and got Kenny Atkinson from Golden State or something like that. Somebody who's, like, really a technical basketball mind. Like, Doc, great, seems like a great guy. I really enjoyed him on Simmons' podcast. I'm disappointed that he's got a job, so he's not going to be on there anymore. But yeah, I just, like, how many times does Doc have to get out? Joe Mazzulla outcoached the shit out of him in that Sixers series last year. I mean, it's but for James Harden having two absurd shooting games that didn't go in 5 essentially. So it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. It's like, these dudes are already going to win a ton of regular season games. Like, why do you care about that at all?
I guess my concern is with Adrian Griffin, it couldn't have gotten any worse than it already was, right? And now they bring in Doc Rivers, and you have to presume just from his experience alone, it has to be somewhat better, has to be somewhat of an improvement. And my concern is, like you said, their floor is already extremely high. Almost anyone could go in there from a coaching perspective and be like, just give Giannis the ball, everyone clear out, get the fuck out of the way, and that's a good offense. So, like, to what extent should we be worried from a slight uptick in production, Jake, from the Bucks, given this coaching change?
Well, that's what I mean. So, like, it would have been better if Adrian Griffin had stayed, and they would have been like, we're going to give him a full season. So, like, you got to give credit for the Bucks for pulling the pin, because it's pretty funny. Like, everyone outside of Bucks land was like, there's so many obvious issues with everything that's going on with the Bucks. Like, they're a complete house of cards. The net rating doesn't match the record. The point differential doesn't match the record. They've, like, stolen 5 to 7 games with these, like the Kings missing 4 free throws at the end of a game. Like a bunch of that stuff happened. Plus, also the 30th easiest strength of schedule. Like, that was all contributing, and it's just funny because Bucks front office clearly agree with all the people that were not Bucks fans, because they're like, yeah, this is not going to work. And so you're absolutely right, Ben. This is an improvement. But what makes me happy is that they didn't go out and get a Kenny Atkinson or someone like that, where you would have been like, that guy is like a legit coach or a tactician, as opposed to a personalities guy. It's like, great. That's as you said, that's a floor play, Spoonie, as opposed to, like, the biggest issues with the reason they fired Bud. Bud was a floor raiser. He was a good coach. Like, he got them. Yeah, like, he got them to the one.
Same problem.
Pretty much every year that he was there. What they needed is, like, an actual tactician who can make adjustments in the playoffs, which is something that Doc doesn't do. So yes, this is technically an improvement. So at first it's like, damn it, but then it's like, then they and also they signed him to a 3-year deal. This is Damian Lillard's prime now is capped by Doc Rivers' ceiling, unless they want to pay 3 coaches because they're now paying Bud, Griffin, and Doc.
Yeah. So that'd be 4 coaches if they get a new one.
Insane, dude.
That's crazy. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Good luck to him, I guess. Anyone else you want to touch on? Like I talked about somewhat erroneously a number of teams being over 500 in the East. We're joking about it in the chat here. A note for the podcast listeners that Philly are also above 500 in the past 2 weeks, but we don't recognize that here as Celtics fans. Anyone else tickling your fancy, Spoonie, in the Eastern Conference from the Celtics perspective?
The Cavs have been playing really well. They've actually started to play really well once Mobley went out. So it seems like they kind of figured something out, but also didn't because he's going to come back. And then what the hell is going to happen? So I'm not real worried about the Cavs. And then other than that, I mean, we've obviously talked a lot about the Heat. The Magic, I think, have kind of shown their ceiling and are kind of drifting back towards like, hey, a nice above average team. They don't really scare me in the playoffs. They definitely don't scare me in the playoffs. They're just too young, too inexperienced, not enough shooting, but they could make a move. They got a lot of assets. And that's the one team I got my eye on in the trade deadline. Like they could cash in some stuff. They got tons of tradable contracts too. So they could get scary real quick.
That's why the Celtics, I think, are pretty guaranteed to make some type of move is because Philly's going to try and do something pretty significant. That would shock me if they don't. The Bucks can't, really. The Knicks still have plenty of chips. The Pacers already made a move for Siakam. They could probably make another move if they wanted to as well. And the Magic absolutely have ammo to do it as well. The good news is they can't all get significantly better because there aren't that many significant players available. But that's definitely something to keep an eye on. But Sixers have definitely easily moved into the team that I am the most afraid of. I understand we're scared, we own them or whatever. To me, that they're like the second best team because I guarantee they make a good move.
Yeah, and he talked about tacticians earlier. Nick Nurse is a fantastically good coach. And Joel Embiid, unsurprisingly, and somewhat as a result of that coaching change, has looked amazing. He is injured at the moment. I believe he's got some knee soreness, which is, as much as we love the Schadenfreude report on the show, we never celebrate opponent injuries. And we should have mentioned as well with Julius Randle, he dislocated his shoulder as well. So he's probably going to be out for a little while too, which looked absolutely nasty. So best of luck to those guys. But yeah, look, suffice to say, playoffs are going to be interesting. Trades are going to be made, and we are going to have a trade deadline show, which we, as we are live here on the internet, are just now talking about for the first time. But I assume we're going to do it, right? It's going to be really, really spicy. So look out to our channel for that, and make sure you subscribe. Guys, let's finish up on the upcoming schedule. New Orleans Pelicans tomorrow in Boston, the second of this 7-game homestand. The Pels, they've got the 14th ranked offense, the 10th ranked defense. In the last 2 weeks, though, that defense has been ranked 28th, which is not great, and they're 2 of 6 in their last 6 games, but with losses to the Thunder, the Bucks, the Suns, Mavs. So good teams, but they're sort of one of these middling teams, wouldn't you say, Jake?
Yeah, they're a team where like you see that they're playing the Bucks, and you're like, oh, if they have a good game, they might have a shot at actually taking down the Bucks. But Zion's just not the same guy. I like our ability to, I guess, it's kind of like the opposite of the Clippers. It's like, okay, you're going to start CJ, Ingram, and Zion. None of those guys can guard the Jays. And Herb Jones is a great wing defender. I love Trey Murphy. He might be like right at the top of my list of like role players that I would want on the Celtics. Too small. Just too small to deal with the power of the Jays and the size that they have, especially like Drew Holiday as well. But, offensively, they got firepower. Like this rookie dude, his name's escaping me right now. But he's been...
Hawkins. Right?
Hawkins, yeah, dude, he's been just insane shooting from 3. Like Trey Murphy can, like they have the firepower to pop off. CJ McCollum, like definition of professional scorer. No injuries on the Pelicans report. Thank you, Mitch, in the chat here. They'll be ready to play. They'll be, as you said, Ben. They've been struggling. They'll be looking to like try and get a win. And as we know, everybody gets up for the Celtics. So, Ingram Zion, that was a discussion. Ingram Zion versus Tatum and Jalen, and so like there'll be some juice to this game. And what we saw after the Celtics lost to the Bucks big time, they came out and had a really big performance. So we want to see them do the same tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm surprised their offense is ranked so low because when you look at the roster, there's like a version of this team that could make a ton of sense if Zion was like 2 years ago Zion and not this kind of like 85-90% of what he was, where they just like surround him with a ton of shooting, And like Valanciunas is just anchoring the back line. But I think, yeah, we can get anything we want. Just put Valanciunas in a pick and roll. He's going to have to play super deep drop, and that nobody can stay in front of the Jays other than Herb Jones. But Joe's done a really good job, getting elite defenders off of the Jays, or just having one Jay camp in the corner and space it out and attacking 4-on-4. So I'm pretty confident about this one, especially coming off a loss. It just feels like they'll be really hungry. They'll play really hard, and it's just a lot better.
Well, maybe hinging on the personnel available for the Celtics tomorrow. Here's the injury report up on screen. A problem with the big men here. Al Horford, left neck sprain. No mention of the finger. He's questionable. Luke Cornett, left hamstring tightness. There's a problem that plagues me on a daily basis. He's doubtful. And the zinger, Kristaps Porzingis, left ankle sprain. He's questionable also. We'll talk about the Pacers, I guess, as a means of answering this question, guys. Spoonie, who would you rather have KP/Al for, if this question makes sense? Would you rather have KP for the Pelicans or the Pacers?
So I think I'd rather have KP for the Pelicans because he can stretch Valanciunas out, and they want to get downhill. They want to attack the rim, so having his rim protection there is great. And then the Pacers are one team that can kind of exploit the way we play defense with KP because they have so much shooting. They play so damn fast. So I think I'd rather have Al for the Pacers and KP for the Pels, just because very specific matchup wise.
Yes, that's all sound reasoning, and Turner's been doing a good job. KP struggles a little bit with the stretch bigs, and kind of all bigs struggle with stretch bigs. That's kind of the cheat code in basketball and in the NBA. But I want to win the Pacers game more, so I want KP for that game. So as much as they can kind of make things difficult, KP is more helpful for pretty much any matchup because he's just ridiculous and the Bear Slayer. So I would vote the Pacers game because I'm excited to see Siakam and Halliburton. It's not a big game, but it's a game that I think has some narrative juice to it. Frustrating again that one of these games has a back-to-back element to it, but I would almost rest both of them if Al's neck. I'd be surprised if KP plays tomorrow. I think they give him one more day.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's a back-to-back. He's got to play one of the games. You may as well give him one more day's rest. As much as, I'm a simple man, I would like to win tomorrow because we lost yesterday. So for that reason, give me KP tomorrow. But obviously, it's much more complicated than that. Hence why any NBA job is well above my pay grade and psychological capabilities. The Pacers, 3-5 in their past 8 games. First look since the Siakam trade, rather. But, they've sort of been floundering, like I just said, 3-5 in the past 8. It's not like they've been crazy dominant since acquiring Siakam. Halliburton, he's obviously been injured. He's out today against the Grizz with, quote, injury management. So unsure, it's unclear if he's going to be playing against the Celtics at this stage. I would have to imagine that he's in any way capable. Yeah, he loves to get up for the Celtics.
Everybody, that's what I'm saying, dude. They you know what? Let's just rest you for this and play against the Celtics. Enough. Let us live our lives, dude. Jesus.
Right.
So, Jake, potentially big Neemias Queta day tomorrow. Are you ready for that? Are you prepared?
Can we just put Tatum at center, dude? Can we put Lamar Stevens at center?
Yeah.
Please.
Hell yeah.
Anyone.
It's finally time. Walshy
at center. I don't know, but maybe it almost... Maybe Queta can step up. I'm going to believe in it, even though...
Very confident sounding, Jake.
Yes.
I don't want to... He was not good in garbage time either. It was just... Anyway.
Can he cater to our deepest desires? We'll see. Tune in tomorrow to find out on the Celtics blog playback room, right, Jake? You guys going live tomorrow?
We'll be live for the playback room as well. It was a blowout when we were discussing whether or not Bones Highland could win an MVP in any era of NBA basketball. We think we needed to go back to the 40s, I think, for him to actually to win one. But it was some great chat, and we'll be hopefully... higher spirits, and if it's a blowout, it's in favor of the Celtics. But yeah, Celtics, playback.tv/Celtics blog. Join the room, get in there. If you don't have League Pass, don't worry. We can give you a VIP pass, give you access to everything, and off to the races.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe to the podcast, YouTube channel, like the stream, and join our new Discord server, which is live as of today. We'll be back a little later in the week. Spoonie, Jake, love your work, guys. Until next time. Go Celtics.
I love the Celtics!